Hello and welcome to Gardening with Ben, your go-to podcast for all things green and growing. I'm Ben, your allotment guide, and here to help you cultivate your garden and your passion for plants. Whether you're a seasoned gardener or just starting out, this podcast is for you. Each episode will dig into tips, tricks and techniques to make your garden and allotment thrive. From planting, sowing and growing, we will share all the tips and advice. We will also have regular episodes talking about what we have been up to on the allotment. So sit back, grab a brew and enjoy today's episode. Hey everyone and welcome back to Gardening with Ben. Well, we said we'd be back with more episodes and we certainly are. Our plan is to start recording all of the week's episodes at the weekend so that you've got them all to listen to all throughout the week. They'll be uploaded around 7 o'clock in the morning so that you can listen to them on the way to work or whether you're walking the dog or down at the allotment, but they'll be all there for you to enjoy. Now, if you're new to this podcast, make sure you give us a follow to stay up to date with us. We like to share our allotment journey and we also like sharing tips and advice on what we're doing. And in today's episode, as I mentioned yesterday, in yesterday's podcast, if you've not listened to that, go and give it a listen to. We're talking about everything that you can plant in November. Yes, you can plant stuff in November. And we've certainly planted a few stuff down at our allotment in the end of October. So you can still plant them now in November. We don't grow much through the winter periods, but I like to have a few things in so that I can see stuff growing. So what sort of stuff can we plant in November? And as I always say, is that have a notebook or anything like that so that you can make notes of all the things that you can do and feel free to try and plant some of them. We've planted quite a few of these vegetables, so hopefully you can grow along with me and let me know how you get on down at your allotment or the garden. So usually we talk about what vegetables you can plant, what flowers you can plant, and what fruit you can plant. So first off, we're going to talk about what vegetables you can plant during November. And the first off is autumn onions. Now we have got our autumn onions in. We've got some yellow ones, we've got some red ones, and we've netted them all over to stop the pigeons and the birds pinching them. And yeah, they like to eat the green tops off them once the shoots start popping through. But once they get big enough, we take the netting off and usually they can withstand themselves. So get your autumn onions in. The ones that are in the garden centres now are the autumn onions, not the summer ones. So go and get some autumn onions and give them a try and just fill one of your beds in and they'll be ready around June or July time. And yeah, obviously you can be planting more stuff out once you've harvested them. So fill a bed in and you might as well sow some and get some planted and see how well you get on. Garlic. Now is the time to plant garlic. You don't want to plant it in March time. You want to plant it now. The reason why we plant garlic now is because it needs the cold weather to crack the cloves to form the garlic. Without the cold weather, the garlic won't form into the bulb that it makes. So if you're wanting to grow some garlic, grow some now. We have got absolutely loads in at my allotment. I must have planted about 50 plants. I've got absolutely loads in. We've got loads of different varieties. We've labelled them all up so that we can feedback on which ones do well. And yeah, we got some sent to us and we got some off Amazon. Now, if you're wanting to grow some garlic, you can grow some from the supermarket, but make sure it's either from the UK or from Europe because it's used to the climates that we have. Don't grow the garlic what's from China because it'll be used to hotter climates. So try and stick to European ones. The best way to get some is from the garden centre because it'll be the right garlic to grow. Peas. I've never grown peas before in the winter, but you can grow a variety of peas called Meteor, which can tolerate the cold. These peas are perfect for winter growing and will be ready to harvest in the early springtime. Planting them now ensures they'll survive winter's chill and give you an early crop in springtime. So again, obviously, if you're sowing peas, you can either start them off in the ground or you can start them off in the greenhouse in pots and stuff like that. Just be careful because mice and rats will enjoy them because there's not much around for them to eat at the moment. So just be careful and make sure they keep them protected. The same goes for broad beans, not much around for them to eat at the moment. But if you're wanting to grow some broad beans, it's a good time to grow them now, because rather than through the summer varieties, because when they're ready to harvest, it'll be before the black fly emerge. And obviously, when you've grown them in March and they're ready around June, July time, they're covered in black fly, which is not usually very nice, is it? They'd never harm the crop, but obviously they never look nice with all the black fly on them. So sow some now and they'll be ready for before the black fly appear. Asparagus. Asparagus is so expensive in the supermarket to purchase, but why not try planting some crowns now, and in a few years' time, you'll be harvesting lots of asparagus and saving absolutely loads of money. Spring onions, obviously where they get the names from. So if you plant them now, they'll be ready for springtime. Now, I usually plant them in clumps so that they, rather than rows, because they form better when they're in a clump rather than planting them all individual, like say very tiny. So you can just start a few off in a plant pot, and then once they've started growing, just transfer the full plant pot into the ground rather than separate them all. Just plant them all straight in and let them grow in a little clump, and they should do absolutely amazing. So that is all the vegetables what you can plant this month for November. So next up, we're going to talk about all the fruit that you can plant during November. Now, November is the best time to plant fruit. Not in the summertime. You want to be planting fruit in the wintertime. The reason for this is that the plants are dormant and they focus on growing the roots. They get all the water they need to help them root, and they'll grow fantastic. Rather than planting them in summer when they concentrate on growing the fruit rather than growing the roots, it's harder to keep them going. So plant any fruit that you want to grow in your allotment or garden during the winter months. Blackberries are the first things on our list. And if you've never grown, if you've got normal blackberries that are thorny, get rid of them and replace them with thornless blackberries. Trust me, it's a game changer. The size of my whips, what have come out from my blackberries, are absolutely massive. And the size of the blackberries have been amazing, and they're a life changer. Obviously, I grew mine. I bought 2 plants, and the amount of blackberries I've had off them that go all the way down the side of my plot, they're absolutely huge, and me and my neighbour absolutely love them. And I just keep tying them up and fastening them up, and yeah, absolutely amazing. So if you've never grown thornless blackberries, I definitely do recommend purchasing some. So next up is raspberries. Obviously, there's 2 varieties of raspberries. You can get your summer varieties, you can get your autumn varieties. Why not try growing both to extend your season so that you get some in summer and some in autumn? But make sure you plant them away from each other so that you know which varieties are which. And just watch out with raspberries because they do grow worse than weeds. They send loads of roots out and then all the canes start popping up everywhere. Obviously, if you've got an allotment, it doesn't really matter where they're popping up, but just watch out with raspberries because the canes will be intrusive. Next up is strawberries. As you heard on my podcast yesterday, I planted 200 strawberry plants this year, ready for next year from my runners. Now, even if you just plant like 10, they'll send out some runners at end of the year, and they'll probably send about 3 or 4 out from each plant. So then you'll double them every single year and you'll get absolutely loads. And I grow mine through black membrane to keep them moist and to keep the weeds down and to protect the strawberries because they'll sit on top of the black matting as well. So if you're wanting to grow some strawberries, now is the time to plant them. Rhubarb. Now, if you're wanting to grow rhubarb, it's so expensive to buy in the supermarket, so expensive. But if you grow rhubarb, you plant the crown now, but you don't harvest it for a year. You need to leave the crown in the ground to take root, get going, and form its spot where it's going to grow. I know it might be tempting to harvest some if you're seeing plenty of rhubarb on it in its first year, but don't harvest it. You need it to take root and to get going. Blueberries. Now, blueberries, you need to grow them in ericaceous compost. If you're wanting to grow blueberries, nice and easy, just plant them in a pot with ericaceous compost in, then rather than in the ground, and then they're easier to feed with ericaceous feed or to fill up with fresh compost each year. and look after them. So if you're wanting some blueberries, grow them in some pots this year. Currants, whether you prefer black, white, red, all different varieties of currants, it's also a good time to plant them now. Obviously, they send out, you can get some massive, impressive yields on currants, but the thing is with them is that they're usually hard to pull out all the ends on them once you harvested them. I know that's annoying, but it's up to you whether you want to grow currants or not, but they will produce a lot of currants. Usually a fantastic cropper, and you can get some brilliant harvests from them. Next up, we're going to talk about what flowers you can plant during November. Yes, there is plenty of flowers that you can be planting in November, as now is the time to be planting all the spring bulbs. Yes, I talk about the spring bulbs all the time. The reason why I love the spring bulbs is because it helps the bees. When the bees wake up from hibernation in the springtime, there's not many flowers around, so the spring bulbs help feed the bees. It helps give them the energy for the year ahead, and it gives them the kickstart that they need. So planting spring bulbs in the allotment and in the garden will encourage the bees to come, and it will help with pollination because your fruit trees will be starting to blossom as well. So encouraging in the bees to come down to the flowers will help with pollination on the fruit trees as well. So it's a win-win situation. So I encourage everybody to plant some spring bulbs in their allotments. If you've got an allotment, let me know, send me a message saying, I'm going to plant some spring bulbs just for you, Ben. I would love to hear from you all saying that, because the more people I can encourage to plant spring bulbs, the better. Yes, they look absolutely gorgeous, but they look after our bees. So what spring bulbs can we plant this month? Obviously, we can plant as tulips. Now is the time to plant them because now it's getting colder. It's better for the tulips to grow because they do say if you plant them earlier, you can get tulip fires, so you've got to be careful. Daffodils, you can still plant them. Hyacinths, bluebells, alliums, snowdrops, crocuses, all the spring bulbs can be planted now. Now, I've planted absolutely loads of spring bulbs at my allotment. Again, every year I plant more and more. My allotment's just going to be full of spring bulbs eventually. But I planted so many, and I want to plant a load more, so I'm probably going to wait until they go on sale at the end of November. Hopefully they will do again this year, because they did last year, and I purchased absolutely loads. Fingers crossed we get another good load of spring bulbs again this year. So obviously hyacinths are one of the best spring bulbs because they smell fantastic, but they're expensive to buy, so if you can get them on offer, why not, eh? Roses. Now is the time to plant roses as well. I want to get some more roses down at my allotment, so hopefully we might get some more different coloured ones, because we've got some gold ones, we've got some red ones, so I need to have a look at some other colours. So if anyone's got any suggestions of some cheap roses that I can add to my allotment, obviously they don't need to be posh varieties. We just want some nice colour and to attract the bees as well. So if you're planning on adding roses to your garden, November is a great time to plant them. Ensure you enrich the soil with plant food before planting, and your roses will bloom year after year. Roses add elegance and a timeless charm to any garden, and they'll flower year after year. You can get success from your roses. Pansies. Now, I've grown absolutely loads of pansies. I've grewn them all from seed. I planted them around end of July, beginning of August, and they've done fantastic. It's so easy to grow them from seed. I didn't realise how easy it is to grow them. But obviously, now is the time to plant the pansy flat plants. I like from the garden centre, stuff like that, rather than growing them from seed. You won't be able to grow them from seed at this time of year. You'll need to plant the actual plants. So if you're wanting to add some colour all the way through winter, pansies are an ideal thing to add to your garden. So I hope you've enjoyed this podcast for today. A little funny fact is this is the second time I've recorded this episode, because I recorded it and then I listened to the sound quality and it was absolutely atrocious. So I ended up re-recording it all again. So the time I've spent recording this one, I could have been recording another one. But oh well, I know all about what to plant in November now because I've done it twice. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this podcast, and I hope that you're happy that they're all back. Like I said, fingers crossed, we're going to get a new podcast on every single morning for 7 o'clock for you to listen to. So make sure you have your bell and make sure you give me a follow and leave a comment. And I think you can leave a rating on the podcast as well now. So the more things you do to help me push it out, the more people will listen to it and the more people will listen around the world. So until next time, everyone, remember, keep smiling, keep shining, and keep gardening with Ben, everyone. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Gardening with Ben. I hope you have found some useful tips and inspiration for your own gardening and allotment journey. If you have enjoyed today's episode, please make sure to follow and subscribe to the podcast so you never miss a new episode. And if you have a moment, I'd love for you to leave a review and share the podcast with fellow gardening enthusiasts. Your support helps us grow this community and continue bringing you great content. You can also follow us on social media on every platform called Gardening with Ben for daily gardening tips and updates. Happy gardening, and until next time, remember, keep smiling, keep shining, and keep gardening with Ben.